name is Rachel and I'm here today to talk about the books I read in the month of July. You know, it's September now. And yes, I did do 2 wrap-ups in July, but I did wrap-ups for the books that I read for Jane Austen in July, and I did a wrap-up for my reading rush books that I read, and I never did a wrap-up for the books that I read that weren't for either of those readathons, and there were actually some books that I read that I wanted to talk about. So we're going to rush through the books that I've already talked about because you don't need to rewrite them again, and then get on to the books that I read in July that I didn't mention. So during Jane Austen July, I reread Pride and Prejudice and read Mansfield Park, and then I also listened to Bridget Jones's Diary on audiobook. Then I read all of these during the reading rush. So that was the full Scott Pilgrim series and seconds by Brian Lee O'Malley, and News Ghost, listened to Hamlet, a radio play of that one, read Illuminate for the first time, and read The Goldfish Boy, which I absolutely adored, probably my best book of the month in July. So they're all the books I've already mentioned previously. I will link those other wrap-ups, so if you want to go and hear my thoughts on any of those books, I'll link it for you. So the other books that I read in the month of July. The first one I didn't read, it's a DNF, and it is I'll Give You the Sun by Johnny Nelson. I got 83 pages into this one, and no. So it's about these 2 twins, Noah, who is a boy, and Jude, who is a girl. They're both really into art, and they're kind of competitive, and to be honest, that's pretty much all I can tell you, which for having read 83 pages, like, I should have cared more to know more than that, and I didn't. Like, I just did not enjoy this at all, really. So that one's probably gonna be unhauled soon. You probably see it again whenever I decide to do that. Almost wanted to persevere just because it could be on my gay shelf, but I made myself not do that because that's stupid. The next thing I read was Romeo and Juliet. This was a reread, and I was again listening to the radio play, which is the same one that I listened to for Hamlet. I really enjoyed reading this, and I think I gave it 3 stars or 3.5 stars. But the thing that I love in this book is the stuff that isn't anything to do with Romeo and Juliet. So I love Mercutio. I kind of love Tybalt in a like love to hate him kind of way. I love the friar. Like, I like a lot of the other stuff. I love Juliet's maid. Like, I love a lot of the other stuff, and the Romeo and Juliet storyline is just kind of like, oh, this is a storyline that happens, but I'm like more invested in everything else. So reread that and quite enjoyed it. Then I had another reread, which was Nimona by Noelle Stephenson. So I haven't read Nimona since the first time I read it, and when I first read it I was just getting into graphic novels. I think I'd read an Emily Carroll graphic novel at this point and maybe Seconds by Brian Lee O'Malley. Like, I was very like early on. So I kind of wanted to go back and see how I would find it, and I did still really enjoy it. I'd knocked a star off. I think I gave it 4 stars originally. I've knocked it down to 3 because it is a bit too actiony for me. But there is also a lot of like character development in here, which I do really enjoy. So this is like an enjoyable book to reread, and definitely one that I will reread again, and one that I'll keep on my shelves. Then we had another graphic novel, which was Volume 2 of Heartstopper by Oseman. So I follow this webcomic online, so none of this is really new information for me. However, I do adore getting the physical copy, and I will just continue to get them when they come out anyway, because I think they are published so wonderfully. I mentioned before, I love the way the tiles are set out, that it's not just a grid like other graphic novels. It's kind of a bit like a random placement. Absolutely love this. If you haven't started this series, I'm not really going to explain what this one is about, but the series as a whole is about 2 boys called Nick and Charlie, who are apparently side characters in Solitaire, but I've not read Solitaire. You don't have to have read it, obviously, because I haven't read it. It's just about their friendship and other stuff that might come out of that. It is lovely, and I love it very much. Then I read a poetry collection, which was The Bees by Caroline Duffy. I haven't read any Caroline Duffy before, and I have been so excited for this book. I've been like, oh, I'm finally going to pick up some Caroline Duffy. This is amazing. And this book is one of the most beautifully published books I've ever owned. I think it looks wonderful. So judging by the cover, 5 stars. But having read it, I gave it 2 stars, and honestly 2 stars is generous. I don't really remember the themes in here. I didn't feel moved when I read it. I didn't really care. I was kind of bored, and I just overall didn't enjoy it, which is quite sad because I've been so excited to read her and everyone talks about her all the time. I don't know whether I should cross her poetry collections off my to-buy list completely. I know that Rapture's, I think it's called Rapture, is supposed to be really good by her, so it might be that I should just pick up one of her books that she is, you know, renowned for. This isn't a book that she is talked about for, really. It was just very, forgettable and bland. So I'm sorry if you're a Kyle and Duffy fan, because I've not been very nice to it. And then the last book I would talk about is one I'm very excited to talk about, and it is Convenience Store Woman by Sayaka Murata, and this is translated from Japanese by Ginny Tapley Takamori. So the main reason that I'm making this video is that I want to talk about this book, and I was like, oh, if I don't make a July wrap up, then I'm not going to get to talk about Convenience Store Woman, and I want to. It's wonderful. This book is the reason that this video exists right now. Convenience Store Woman is the weirdest book. It's weird because it's so normal. It's about such a mundane day-to-day sort of life, which is something that obviously we don't see in a lot of books. A lot of people say like, oh, why don't I see someone who just like does what I do day to day, or like it's just like cooking the tea or something, and it's because it's boring. And that's why you don't see it in books, because people wouldn't read it. But this has kind of taken that just like a normal mundane life that someone has and made it such an interesting book and made it such an interesting premise for a novel. We basically follow this woman. So I was calling it Keiko, but that's because my friend had a dog when I was a kid called Keiko, and I think she spelled it like this, but it could be Kiko, I have no idea. But basically we follow our main character, who's a woman called Keiko. She works in a convenience store. She's worked in this convenience store since it first opened, I think around her early 20s. That's the kind of vibe I got. It does say specifically, but I can't remember now because it was like 2 months ago. But she's been working in this convenience store since it opened, and she basically lives for this convenience store, and she kind of aligns herself with the convenience store, like her mental health, her physical health. It's kind of like her heart beats to the rhythm of the convenience store. Like, I know that sounds really weird, but it is weird. The weirdest thing is that I gave this book 3 stars. Yeah, I'm so excited by it, and I feel like it would be a favourite book of the year. I enjoyed it so much. But then I'm like, why did I give it 3.5 stars? I don't know. I feel like it's just like got under my skin. It's fascinating, and the thing that I love about this is that it really focuses on this idea of like societal pressure and expectations. And I actually have a friend, not this situation exactly, but a situation that I found really similar whilst I was reading the book. So like, she works at Amazon, she loves working at Amazon, it's the perfect job for her. She doesn't have to deal with customers, which is something that she gets anxious about. It's all about numbers. I know a lot of people struggle, and they talk about a lot how like Amazon isn't a good company to work for. She's like, no, that's fine, I like it. I like knowing my numbers, I like knowing exactly what I have to hit. I can go home at the end of the day knowing I've done a good job. I love it. And then everyone around her, like parents and her friends and that, are like, oh, you need something that's a career, you can't work at Amazon forever, like blah 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 blah. So she went and did teacher training, and she did teacher training and she hated it, and she ended up stopping by Christmas. It was the worst thing ever. She absolutely hated it, and at the end of it she was like, I just wish I'd stayed at Amazon, I just really like working at Amazon. Luckily she's working back at Amazon now, she's very happy. But as I was reading this book, it was so much like putting into words that situation, because it's like she didn't want to do any of these things, and it's everyone else's expectations that made her do that. And that is basically the whole premise of this book, and it's wonderful. It's wonderful in the themes that it covers and the way that it expresses them and talks about them. Yeah, this is like a really tiny, skinny little masterpiece, and I love it. And I definitely think I'll reread it again in the future, especially because it's so small. Like, what excuse do I have not to? I made this video just so that I could talk about this book, so there you go. I really like this book. You should pick it up if you've not done already. I know it's quite popular, so you probably have read it, but if you've not, I really want to buy all the copies, because the copies of it, I've got the yellow one, but they do this edition exactly the same, but it's blue, and then they do it exactly the same, but it's pink. And they look so good in Waterstones. They have them all like piled up next, like in a pile. And I'm like, oh, they look so like aesthetically pleasing lined up next to each other. And I'm like, no, Rich, you're not buying 3 copies of the same book just because they look aesthetically pleasing. But it is something that could happen in the future. Trying not to do that, working very hard not to, but that is, you know, a possibility. Anyway, this is a fantastic book. You should go read it. It's great. So, they're all the books I read in July, along with these ones that I read for readathons and stuff. I think overall I read like 19 books in the month of July, which is just crazy, and was not expecting that. Have not read that much in August, because the last 2 weeks I haven't read anything. But yeah, it was fun. I liked July. I had some good reading times in July. Thank you very much for watching. If you've read any of these books and want to talk to me about them, please do in the comments down below, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!